Welcome back to On the Clock, our show about making the moments matter. I'm your host, Elisa Gums. Today, we're chatting about getting outside and how it can help your overall well-being with Nailah Blades. She's a life and leadership coach. She's the founder of Color Outside, a community created to help Black and Indigenous women harness the outdoors to create joy-filled and balanced lives. And she's also the author of Joyful by Nature, Embracing Outdoor Adventure as Women of Color. Nailah, we're so excited to have you here on The Clock. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm doing so well.
Can you tell us about your own relationship with nature? Is it a part of how you were raised, or did you discover it as an adult?
Yeah, so I think growing up, I had definitely a relationship with nature. So was always playing outside, riding my bike, going swimming, those types of things, but never really would have categorized myself as outdoorsy. And I think I was lucky enough to grow up with a family where we weren't outdoorsy, but we were kind of try anything once family. So we had the opportunity to go camping as kids. We had the opportunity to try some snow sports, but I don't think that we were, gun ho on any one of those things. So as I grew up, I just kind of maintained that attitude of, hey, it's important to try anything once and it's important to be adventurous and get out there. And my family, so my husband and my two kids and I, we found ourselves moving from Southern California to Salt Lake City, Utah, which, as you could imagine, was a huge culture shock. And one of the things that we really wanted to make sure that we embraced was Utah has a really phenomenal outdoor culture, and we have a lot of accessibility to the outdoors. So once we moved here, we felt like one of the best ways to really uh, jump right into this new culture and to alleviate a little bit of that homesickness was to start embracing the outdoors. So I think that's when I started getting a lot more outdoorsy.
Your book, Joyful by Nature, begins with the diversity gap in the outdoors. We like to say we outside, but we're not really outside. Why aren't we outside?
Yeah, there are so many reasons for that. A lot of it just goes back to the way that the outside is presented for us. So I think that a lot of times the outdoors, in this way that it's this recreational space, is not really marketed to folks of color. So it's not something that our parents grew up doing. It's not something that our grandparents grew up doing. And it's not being passed along in that way. And a lot of that does have to do with just, unfortunately, the history in this country. And a lot of times the outdoors is not a safe place for us. So we carry that with us. We have that understanding with us, and we are trying to keep ourselves safe. Also, unfortunately, due to a lot of just systemic and structural issues, a lot of times the places where we are, we don't have that accessibility to the outdoors. It's really difficult to get there. We're not sure what we're supposed to be doing when we get there. So there's just a lot of these barriers to entry. So I think there's, again, just those historic reasons, the structural reasons, systemic reasons why you're not seeing a lot of people of color in the outdoors in the same way. And then also just the outdoor industry as a whole is just not really talking to us. They're not reaching out to us. They're not talking to us in our language. And they have a very specific view of what it means to be outdoorsy. And a lot of times we don't fit into that. A lot of times I don't fit into that, even as someone who really embraces the outdoors. So I think there's lots of these reasons. And luckily, in the last few years, I think we've really seen a lot of people, a lot of other organizations, a lot of other individuals who are trying to bridge that gap.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned what's passed down from generation to generation. And I think that our ancestors certainly understood the benefits of nature, but that it's been lost for a lot of us over the years. Talk to us about how the outdoors can contribute to our well being.
Yeah. So I think you're spot on that a lot of our ancestors really did have that connection with the land. They had a connection with the outdoors, and they had their own special connection. They did it in their own way. And a lot of times that either got lost or it was taken away from us. So now we just, that connection gets severed. But it's so important. It's so important for us to have a connection to our land, to have a connection to the space, to have that connection to our ancestors who had that connection. And I think we can all realize that when we do have the chance to get outdoors and we get that chance to slow things down and to just breathe in the fresh air and to not be attached to our devices, we start to really have that understanding of how it does impact our well-being. So there's all types of studies where it increases our happiness. It makes us feel more joyful. It helps us to feel more connected to one another. It helps us again to feel connected to the land around us. It reduces our stress. It boosts all of those happy chemicals. So there's so many things. There's so many benefits to being able to have some sort of connection to the outdoors, and it's has real benefits to our wellness and our well-being in a real way.
Yeah. And why is it important specifically for Black women to develop a relationship to the land?
Yeah, I think it's so important for Black women to develop that relationship just because it really does allow us to connect back to ourselves. And I think that as women in general, but I think especially as Black women, as women with marginalized identities, we get all of this stuff just placed on top of us. There's all of these different stressors that we're dealing with. We're told that we have to show up in particular ways, and a lot of these things are really taking us away from who we are at our core. And I really believe that as we're able to get outside, we're able to quiet a lot of that external noise. We're able to really take that look inwards and think about, who am I? How am I showing up? How am I connecting back to those folks that came before me? I think that's really important for us. I think it's really important for our own personal joy. I'm a big believer that our joy, that is our superpower. And that's how we are going to be able to push forward through all of the things that are happening in our world and our lives right now. And I think that when we're able to get outdoors, we're able to connect back to that inner joy, that inner strength. And those are some of the things that are helping us to just, again, stay well and to really be ourselves and to show up as ourselves and to really keep creating this world that we want to see around us.
Yeah, and anything that is free or almost free that helps us stay well, that helps us reduce our stress, like we should be flocking to it in droves, like honestly.
Exactly that. And I think that's the nice thing too is, I think again, we have this picture of what it means to be outdoorsy and you have to be wearing all the gear and the special shoes or whatever it is. And really all it means is that, hey, just get outside in whichever way works for you. So maybe that means that you're sitting on your patio or that, you find a park that's close to you that is, feels good, or you go on that daily walk. So it doesn't have to be, like you said, expensive. It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be really easy and just that thing that helps to fill you back up each day.
You touched on this notion of going outside to go inside. And I think that that light bulb first went off for me when I visited the Grand Canyon. I expected it to be beautiful and I expected it to be wondrous, but I never expected it to feel sacred. And the most surprising thing to me was that I didn't want to leave. I literally just wanted to sit at the edge of the canyon and ask it questions for hours and hours and wait for the answers to come back to me about my life. And so how does time outdoors help us hear our inner voice or find clarity in our thoughts and feelings?
Yeah. Oh, and I love that experience for you. I'm so glad that you had that. And, I think one of the biggest things is just that sense of quiet and calm. And unfortunately, we don't often have that in our daily lives. So I don't know. I know your life is probably like mine. It's probably busy. You have a lot of demands on your time and energy. You're trying to do all the things. And that does not leave a lot of space for you to sit down and be reflective and for you to ask those questions and listen to those answers. And when we get outside, we just kind of automatically get a little bit more into that meditative space. So the outdoors has a natural way of putting us into that reflective space. And they've done studies on that where they've seen, they've sent people outdoors and they've gone on these 3-day backpacking trips, and they've had them do cognitive tests before and after the trip. And when they came back, they saw that just different parts of their brains lit up as a result of them being outside. So the parts that have to do with empathy and innovation and creative thought and all of these other parts of our brains are able to light up and support us in doing some of this thinking. So I think that that's one of the big things, is just literally the very nature of being outdoors is supporting us in getting to that meditative and reflective space. It's quieting down our brains. It quiets down kind of that executive taskmaster of our brain that's keeping that running list. It's saying, okay, you could calm down for a little bit and we could think about these other things. The other thing that I think is really beautiful, and I think is something that you touched on, is just the awe of being in the outdoors, and especially someplace, it could be that big awe, like the Grand Canyon, where you're just like, I have no understanding of how a place like this even exists. Or it could be that small awe where you're, looking at a leaf and you see how intricate it is. And you're just kind of like, wow, this is really amazing. And that feeling of awe, that really helps to connect us to the outside world. It helps us to connect us to everybody else. And it, again, helps us to really think about our place in the world, and helps us to, again, get into that reflective point of like, yeah, who am I? I'm this small being on this large planet, but I'm still connected to all of these other humans and animals and plants and the land. And it really helps us to think in that much more reflective way.
We're going to come back to that awe a little bit later. But
Yeah.
I want to stick with this, sort of the outside helping us with the inside, because one of the things you do that I find so intriguing is that in your leadership coaching, you incorporate the outdoors. And I've never really heard anyone sort of draw that line between them before. Can you share how the outdoors can help professionals or entrepreneurs feel more fulfilled with their work or be more successful at it?
Yeah. So I mean, there's so much there. And when you think about it, we're just, animals, right? We're complicated animals working within this system. So when we start to think about those things, and we start to think about a lot of the problems and the issues and the stressors that we're facing as leaders or entrepreneurs or business people, and we can really start to think about, how can our connection to nature support us in showing up in a better way? So as an example, one of the things that I talk to my clients a lot about is their own personal seasonality. And I think as entrepreneurs, business people, professionals, you are go, go, go 100% of the time. But when you really think about that, that's just not the way that we're built. That's not the way that we're meant to show up in this world. We all have our own personal seasonality, much the same way that, the nature around us has seasonality. And we don't expect animals to be out and about and go, go, go in the winter or even the fall, because we know that that's when they are resting. That's when things are powering down. That's when maybe we are supposed to be much more reflective and thinking about the future. And then, as the spring comes in or the summer, that's where we have a lot more energy that we can draw from and get things done. So I think it's really important for us to have a sense of how that shows up in our actual lives, whether it's like seasonality on an annual basis, or even thinking about our energy levels from day to day or hour to hour, so that we're not pushing ourselves to push against our just natural rhythms. And I think that's where we get into trouble. That's where we start to feel that exhaustion. That's part of what can lead to things like burnout, when we just feel like we have to go, go, go all of the time. So that's like one example of how really connecting back to nature and really feeling a lot more in tune with the outdoors can help support us in getting the stuff that we want to get done as busy professionals. And then I think, again, all of those just benefits that you get from that connection to the outdoors, I think hugely impacts how you show up as just a busy person or a professional. So recognizing that you do need to take breaks, that you do need that time to get outside, to just have the sun hit your face instead of being, hunched over in your office all day long. All of those things are so important if we do want to feel like we're able to move forward as professionals and leaders.
Yeah. So back to the description of your book immediately excited me because of the talk of words like adventure and awe and play,
Mm,
things a lot of us were taught to put aside long ago because Black children so often have to grow up so fast.
mhm.
Can you speak to the power? You talked a little bit about awe before. Can you speak about adventure and play?
Yeah, yeah. So I think you're spot on where a lot of times we do have to put that away a lot sooner. So either the outside world is looking at us and assuming that we're much older than we are, or we have certain circumstances that are happening within our communities or our families that do force us to grow up and put aside the play a lot sooner. But play, again, is so important. Play, again, is one of those things that really lights up those different parts of our brain and really supports us in thinking about things in different ways. And I think that so many of us are, really concerned, like Black women, we're so concerned about our communities and our future, and what is that going to look like. And one of the ways that we can start creating the future that we want to live into is through play. It is through, having that radical imagination. It is through thinking about things in a way that we've never thought about it before, or saying like, how can we approach this problem in a way that hasn't been done before, but that's going to really support and uplift the community. And in order to have that innovation, to have that radical imagination, we have to be able to play. We have to be able to access our joy. We have to be able to really think and imagine and just get outside of that box and play. That allows us to do that. It allows us to be silly and to say, oh my gosh, I didn't think that this would be a way to get this done, but it totally is. So I think that that's one of the really important things about play, and how it connects us back to just the vision that we have for the future and how we can achieve it. And then apart from that, again, I spoke about that joy and how important it is for us to be able to access our joy as Black women. And we really can do that through play. And it's important for us to feel like we can be silly, or to have belly laughs with a girlfriend, or to go and move our bodies, or to dance and not think about what other people are thinking about us. So I think really being able to think about what are the ways that we can play. It might not look exactly like how it did when we were little, but I think there's elements of the things that we enjoyed when we were little that we can apply to our lives now to really support us in getting into that playful, silly space.
Yeah. We've talked a lot now about the why it matters. And I'd love if we could share some techniques for the how. So for people who, have been spending all their time inside at their desks, in the office, in their home office,
Yeah.
what are some actual ways that women can connect with the world around us?
Yeah. I always say, start small where you are. So no one's expecting you to all of a sudden go out and say, oh, I'm going to go on this, I don't know, 50-mile bike ride, or I'm going to climb this mountain, or anything like that. I think, one of the things you can start to think about is what do you like? What are some of the things that you like about the outdoors? Or what are some of the things that you enjoy doing that, again, light you up, that maybe you could do outside? So as an example, I'm a big fan of, brunch and getting together with my friends and eating and talking and drinking and all of that great stuff. I love just that community factor and that connection. So, maybe an example for me, if I was starting to think about how can I get outside more? What are ways that I can connect with people? Maybe it's like, hey, we're going to do like a little picnic. We're going to find a really nice space, and we're each going to bring something, and we're going to do that same thing that we would do at brunch, but outdoors. Or maybe I'm like, okay, it's that connection value that I really enjoy. So maybe I say, hey, I want to start going on a walk. I'm just going to do a little local walk around my home, but I'm going to call up a friend to do it with me, and we'll do that together. So I think thinking about the things that you already enjoy doing, and then thinking about like, how can I move that outdoors for a little bit? The other thing is, again, it doesn't have to be a big thing. So sometimes it really can be something as simple as, instead of drinking my coffee or my tea in front of my laptop while I check email in the morning, maybe I'm going to go outside and I'm going to drink it, outdoors on my patio before I get started. So it could be something as simple as that. So I think, again, starting small where you are, think about what you're already doing and how you can start to, like, in small ways, incorporate the outdoors into that. And then also think about the things that you really like doing and how can you start to incorporate the outdoors into that, or moving those things outside so that it doesn't feel like a chore. That's the last thing we want. We want it to feel really simple, and then you could continue to build on that.
Yeah. I think what you were saying earlier about it not really being accessible to us in terms of us thinking that we belong there is so true. And I think about like a lot of the trends that will come out in the media. They'll talk about things like forest bathing or whatever, that things that sound really foreign to us
Yep.
or maybe intimidating to us. And it's not so much. So can you just share like a grounding technique for people for when they're outdoors, just in a way that's really accessible?
Yeah, yeah. And I think all of that stuff is so funny, like the forest bathing. I mean, that's literally, you're just outside. You're just in,
Right.
you're in the forest. You're not doing anything special. Or hiking, you're just walking, but you happen to be outdoors. So, yeah, I think the more that you can kind of just reduce all of the fanfare around some of these things, the easier. And I think in terms of the grounding techniques, and that's another great way to get outside, is to like do some of those grounding techniques, to do some of those meditative techniques while you're outdoors. So something that I really enjoy doing, and I think it lends itself to the outdoors really easily, is just kind of like a noticing grounding. So basically you could sit down someplace outside and you just start to notice things. So you say, okay, there's a green leaf, there's a red car, there's a maple tree. And you're not assigning any value to anything, but you're just noticing everything that goes by. So that's one super simple grounding technique. It really helps to, again, quiet that brain if you're just feeling a lot of those rushing thoughts. Another super simple one is the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. So can easily be done anywhere, but it can also be done outside. So this is where, you sit down, take a few of those cleansing breaths, and you think about you call out 5 things that you can see. So again, it's like, okay, I see a bird, I see a tree. Then you think about 4 things that you hear. So again, kind of tuning into the 4 things that you hear. You could do, 3 things that you can touch or feel. So maybe you're feeling the chair on your back, or you're feeling the clothes on your body. And then you would do 2 things that you smell. And then 1 thing that you can taste or like to taste. Taste is sometimes a weird sense, but really just going through all of your senses in that 5-4-3-2-1, and just allowing yourself to, again, bring that temperature down, bring that pressure down, and quiet the mind.
Yeah. And when we think about our daily or our weekly self-care routines, what are some of the ways we should be incorporating the outdoors? Like if you could create kind of like a food pyramid and be like, well, you should get outside this much, or you should walk, or you should be near water. What would you recommend?
Yeah, so I think if you can strive to get outside in some way at least once a day. So I know there's a lot of talk going on right now about like getting outside in the first hour of the day and getting sun on your face and all of that. And sometimes those things stress me out a little bit because I'm like, oh my gosh, have I been awake for an hour? Did I get outside? So I don't think that's necessary, but I think aiming to get outside at least once in some part of your day. So I think it is important for us to, get that fresh air, to get that sun on our faces, to move our bodies in a joyful way, all of that great stuff. So I think if you are someone that's starting out, I think that's a really easy thing to aim for. It's like, can I get outside at least one time during the day, maybe I start small. Maybe I'm just starting out with 10 to 15 minutes. And then maybe from there, I'm able to get up to like 30 minutes or even, an hour that I'm spending outdoors. And then I think from there, it's really starting to look at your schedule and say, okay, realistically, where can I plug in that time? So does it make the most sense to do something early in the morning before I get started? Or maybe for me, if I work outside the home, maybe a lunch break makes sense where I can get out of the office and go walk around or go sit down or something like that. Or, maybe it's kind of starting to think about what does the evenings look like for me? Can I get outdoors in the evening or the late afternoon and do my outdoor time?
Yeah. I mentioned in the intro that you founded a community called Color Outside. Before we go, please tell us more about it because it's a great way for women to get involved.
Yeah. So I think one of the best things that you can do if you're someone that is looking to get outdoors more is to do it with people, to find community to do it with. So whether that's finding a group like Color Outside or another local group, that's always one of my number one recommendations. It just makes everything so much easier. So I started Color Outside back in 2016 when I first moved to Salt Lake City. And for that same reason, I really wanted to start to explore Salt Lake City and this new home for me. And I thought it would be so much more fun and a lot easier to do it with other women of color who were also new to Salt Lake City or who maybe had not explored Utah in that way yet. So started Color Outside. It really started as just a free meetup group where we were meeting up and going on different adventures, seeing different things that we wanted to see. And we had that, safety and security of community to do it with. And from there, it started to grow. So we've grown to having different workshops. I started incorporating more of the coaching into it. We've also had things like our Women of Color ski event. So it's a ski event that we do each winter, and we are able to come out and women are able to take ski lessons and learn to ski if that's something that they're interested in but have never done before. And we've even done retreats where we've had women come from all over North America to come spend, 3-4 days out in the wild. So just getting, a big old Airbnb and having us all come together and be able to explore the outdoors together, but also just connect with one another and also take a break. So to really just connect back with our wellness.
This has been so refreshing. Thank you, Nailah, for sharing the unique ways you're helping us make the most of the time we've been giving by helping us reconnect with the world around us. And thank you all for watching On the Clock. We'll see you next time as we continue to talk about working with purpose and living with passion.